Hey, yo, I want to talk about Magic's new set, Secrets of Strixhaven, which will probably be out by the time of this video's release. And you can tell I'm excited about it because I've actually bought a Commander pre-con for the first time in years. Go Silverquill! But for me it's not out yet and my pre-order hasn't arrived, so I'll probably talk about that set next week maybe. Instead I thought I'd spend today saying farewell to Magic's last real set, R.i.p. Lorwyn Eclipsed. And yes, I said it's Magic's last real set. No, I haven't forgotten about TMNT. But Universes Beyond aside, I don't count it as it's a small set conversion. Meaning I feel packs share more with those Assassin's Creed Beyond boosters than they do a real Magic release, regardless of any ill-advised forced standard legality. But I'm not here to talk about that either. Today's about the end of Lorwyn Eclipsed, and by extension, kind of Magic's 2026 schedule as a whole. And to help me do that, I've asked my assistant, Dr. Hands, to grab 3 packs of the set so that we can open them together. But a quick disclaimer first, because I want you to know what you're in for. I feel a bit melancholic when I think of Lorwyn Eclipsed, because I feel like WotC had almost set it up to fail. It got shunted back a year, likely due to Spider-Man, which is why I suspect the date-stamped promos had to be removed from pre-release kits. The printing of the set was so obviously rushed that many people reported all kinds of packaging issues, and of its not particularly favourable January release date, Principal Magic designer Gavin Verhey said, "We rarely release sets this early in January, but it seems to have gone really well." Okay, Gavin, but what if it didn't? It sounds like WotC thought the release date would be a potential risk to sales or could impact the set's popularity, and yet they did it anyway. So what? Did they think Lorwyn Eclipsed was expendable? Expected to bomb regardless? Why not stick Spider-Man or the Turtles in that release slot? I think we all know why. It seems like WotC deemed pack sales of Lorwyn Eclipsed so irrelevant that it wouldn't matter if it flopped anyway. Which kind of sucks as a hobbyist when the messaging around a quite expensive product is, the people that made this don't seem to care about it, now hand over your money anyway. And that's not to even mention spoilers for other products taking up the limelight during what was supposed to be Lorwyn's time to shine. And yet, somehow shine it did. It just feels like it was in spite of WotC's efforts and not due to them. And now with the release of Strixhaven, an actual real Magic set, I feel like I can no longer deny that Lorwyn's short-lived time in the spotlight has well and truly passed. And before you comment, well actually, yes, many places still have boxes available for purchase. Yes, I'm free to go and draft with friends whenever I like. Yes, I understand the set hasn't gone anywhere, but the attention it gets from both WotC and the player base has. The hype train has long since left the Lorwyn station, will now briefly stop at Strixhaven before it barrels on once again to Star Trek or whatever. And so, back to that disclaimer, because there is no larger purpose to today's video, other than for an opportunity for me to say farewell to a set that I really liked. If you're interested in a point, then I think WotC could have done more to support, promote and celebrate this great set is about as deep as it gets. But if you're interested in joining me as Dr. Hands opens up these packs, and listening to me talk about whatever comes to mind as I take one last moment to fully appreciate this set, then stick around and let's zoom in. Now, the first thing I want to say is a good quality product or good value for money is rarely indicated by a single factor. Having a good experience with something is usually due to an abundance of little things that have all been shown care and attention. Look after the small things and the big things look after themselves. For instance, it doesn't matter how expensive the room was or how many stars the hotel had, if when you arrive the bedsheets are dirty and the bathroom hasn't been cleaned, you're not going to feel appreciated as a guest or that your experience was of a high standard. Of course, the opposite can also be true. Attention to the little things can be a great way to trick you into something is of a higher quality than it actually is. I'm sure we've all got stories of how some meal that we've eaten looked, smelled and tasted fantastic but still gave us food poisoning afterwards anyway. But my point is, regardless of whether the print quality of Lorwyn's Eclipse cards is good or bad, whether the power level or design of the set impacts any formats, or even whether the draft environment is enjoyable or not, this attention to detail in the form of packs having multiple different artworks is an indication of a quality product. It doesn't feel like something a cheap TCG would do. And as I already mentioned, pack prices for what amounts to cardboard was expensive. I've said this before, but having various pack artworks is such a small detail that makes such a big difference. And it seems like it shouldn't matter because most of the time you won't even notice or take time to appreciate it anyway. But WotC splashing out and showing off a variety of artwork on their packs in a flashy, eye-catching manner is a sign of quality. And if we can maintain that level or gaining enough other new signs of quality like that, even if they are only minor things that get taken for granted, it will still make Magic as a whole feel like a higher quality product again. This might just be me, but in recent years, the corners that WotC have cut have started to feel more and more apparent. For example, with this set, I mentioned the removal of date-stamped pre-release promo cards. The card quality feels somehow both thin and kind of brittle or grainy or something. And there have been packaging and print errors. Artwork has bled or cards from other sets appeared in Lorwyn packs. None of that screams quality. But at the very least, the different artworks on packaging is a step in the right direction, and I applaud it. Because Magic is an expensive hobby, so yeah, if I'm dropping cash, I expect some unimportant bells and whistles. I paid you a premium, so show me some razzle-dazzle. All those negatives I listed a moment ago aren't the end of the world, but if WotC can fix them, Magic will feel like a higher quality game because of it. So people can feel happier about their purchases, and people like myself will have far less reason to complain. And I don't know if you can tell, but I love this game. I don't want to have to keep complaining about how their cost-cutting measures are negatively impacting the players. Oh, and speaking of cost, the second thing I want to mention is that usually when we do these videos I get Dr. Hands to open 6 to 12 packs. But we get 3 today because they're expensive. Strixhaven is coming out and I'm quite poor. This is a very small channel, so hey, go check out my Patreon. Anyway, pack 1. As per usual, the cards are laid out in the order that Dr. Hands has opened them. These are our 6 to 7 commons. These 3 are our uncommons. We have 1 wildcard of any rarity, 1 rare or mythic rare, 1 traditional foil of any rarity, 1 basic land, and a token. And this pack is a great example of how this set was stuffed with one of my favourite card types in Magic. Enchantment auras like Blossom Bind here, which is the kind of card that I absolutely love running in a deck. Its rules text reads enchant creature, when this aura enters, tap enchanted creature can't become untapped and can't have counters put on it. Meaning it effectively turns off utility creatures like the famous Llanowar elves who would no longer be able to tap to add a mana as they'd already be tapped. Blossom Bind also turns off any creatures that benefit from having counters added to them, like most of the ones that we saw in Ikoria for instance, and it turns off creatures used to attack like this Boldweir Aggressor with its double strike that we also opened in this pack, as a tapped creature can no longer tap to attack. And when thinking of removal for Blossom Bind's 2 mana, there are many other potentially better options like the classic Doomblade or Lightning Bolt for example, or even this set's own Requiting Hex, which also can turn off a creature by simply destroying it. But I believe there are instances where enchantment auras, like we see a lot of in this set, are preferable over traditional removal. First of all, graveyard recursion has become prevalent to the point of common in Magic. While once bringing things back from the graveyard was the realm of black cards like the infamous Reanimate, it seems every colour now has the ability to recur lost cards, like we see from many of the non-black permanents in the current Strixhaven set. So an enchantment aura's ability to nullify a threat without removing it from the board then, thus making it unable to be reanimated, can be quite useful. But the second instance where enchantment auras win out over traditional removal is actually better exemplified by Noggle the Mind, which is our spotlight card for the pack. Its rules text reads, Flash, enchant creature, enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a colourless Noggle with base power and toughness 1/1. And that's beneficial as it is a fantastic way to get under your opponent's skin. Now I understand that not everyone likes politics and mind games in Magic. Some people want to play solitaire and not poker, especially in non-tournament 1v1 games it seems. But I like politics and mind games, and removal, as the name implies, removes a creature from the board. So if someone's pet card that they love or were pinning their hopes of winning on gets Doombladed for instance, it'll sting but eventually be forgotten about, as once it's in the graveyard it's out of sight and out of mind. However, if you can Noggle that pet card instead, it'll stay on the board and be a constant source of frustration as they see their beloved defanged. If you ever get the pleasure of casting Noggle the Mind against a particularly oppressive threat, may I recommend saying the phrase, "That's a Noggle that is," every time your opponent looks at the card if you truly want to tilt them. That kind of childish tactic is not sporting, but it is funny. Pack 2. And once again, this pack contains multiple examples of another element of this set that I love. Heirloom Auntie. This creature enters with 2 -1/-1 counters on it. Whenever another creature you control dies, surveil 1, then remove a -1/-1 counter from this creature. Reluctant Downguard. This creature enters with 2 -1/-1 counters on it. Whenever another creature you control enters while this creature has a -1/-1 counter on it, remove a -1/-1 counter from this creature. and our spotlight card, Gnarlback Elm. This creature enters with 2 -1/-1 counters on it, spend 2 and a black and remove 2 counters from this creature. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn, activate only as a sorcery. Magic is a game of strategy and interaction. So I love mechanics like this that have some sort of downside, like them entering with -1/-1 counters, meaning the creature is going to be weaker and more likely to be killed off before it can be fully utilised. And you take that risk in exchange for a payoff that makes running the risk worth it. And I think is now the right time to play this card. Mini-games like that you play in your head are fun. And if I'm being honest, a preferable play experience to some other design spaces that make cards feel like generically good no-brainers that can be played on autopilot. For instance, as much as I love Landfall, it does reward you for doing what you were going to be doing anyway, and that doesn't always result in the most interesting tactical gameplay. Now yes, I assume thanks to the game's power creep, even these minimal -1/-1 drawbacks aren't that bad, especially compared to some of the older cards that previously used built-in downsides to running them. But I still must applaud the design team here because it's better to have some risk-reward complexity than none at all. And this specific use of -1/-1 counters also serves the dual purpose of limiting the number of activations of a secondary ability. In this example, you literally can't do the second effect if Gnarlback Elm has no more -1/-1 counters to remove, which might even incentivize you for putting -1/-1 counters on your own creature. This is genius game design, even if I did wish the cards of this nature didn't have the ability to remove those downsides on their own. In fact, I'd want to ratchet up the risk of playing cards like this because I personally enjoy the tactical challenge that's required to play something when its mechanics aren't all upside. Pack 3. Just wow, look at the art on these cards. This set was so beautiful. We just pulled more Cat's Loyalist, Raiding Schemes, and Gallant Foul Knight that I don't believe anyone could look at and not smile. I mean, even just the token and the land in this pack are works of art. Gorgeous. Anyway, our spotlight card for the pack is Furdock Core, because it is the latest example of one of my favourite types of cards for Commander. I call cards like this Soul Ring killers because while Soul Ring is obviously more powerful, Furdock Core and its 3-cost mana rock brethren are infinitely more interesting. Changeling, because the card depicts Lorwyn, so that makes sense. Tap to add 1 mana of any colour, spend 4 and it becomes a 4/4 artifact creature until end of turn. A wonderfully flavourful way to capture the spirit of Lorwyn in the mechanics. You could probably figure out what plane is being represented by just the rules text alone. For some other examples of 3 mana rocks that depict a specific plane in not just the art but the text as well, Solar Array, tap to add 1 mana, and when you next cast an artifact this turn it gains Sunburst because Edge of Eternities was all about spaceships, so of course. Phyrexian Altar, tap to add 1 mana and each opponent who has 3 or more poison counters loses 1 life, because the Phyrexians are all about spreading their corruption, so of course. And Honoured Heirloom, tap to add 1 mana or spend 2 and tap it to exile a card from a graveyard, because Avacyn's Church on Innistrad is all about preventing the undead, so of course. Furdock Core might not be anywhere near as powerful as a Soul Ring, but in a Lorwyn-themed Commander deck it is so much more interesting. And for that I love it because I love thinking about this plane. And that's all of our packs. Let me know your thoughts on Lorwyn in the comments below. This video is silly I know, but I really enjoyed this set, so I'm sad to move on from it. There was something special about Lorwyn, and that kind of feels like a rarity given the way that WotC have been acting and the kind of sets that Magic was putting out only just a year or so ago. But sets like Bloomburrow, Tarkir Dragonstorm, Edge of Eternities, now Lorwyn Eclipsed, and hopefully Strixhaven next might be evidence that finally Magic is moving again in the right direction. Not totally in the right direction perhaps, but I'll take the victories where I can get them. But for now though, I want to say thank you for Lorwyn Eclipsed to all those that worked on it to make it shine. At times it felt like it got done dirty, and that not everyone at WotC cared about it, but I think in spite of that it was a good set overall. And though the hype for Lorwyn may have passed, I'll certainly always remember my time there fondly. Good job, and thank you. Thank you very much for watching this video, and thank you to everyone that supports me, like 27 publications, Eggboy the Particle that permeates all existence, Blank Space, Wanpako Jozu, Miss Murder, a random Patreon, Ominous Jazz, and the rest of my patrons whose names are on screen now. I'd also like to thank the sponsor for this video, me and my Patreon page, where you can get your name credited on screen too. Check it out in the link in the description below. Hit the like button, leave a comment, If you watch my quizzes, should I do a round where I get you to guess what plane a card is from based only on the rules text? That might be interesting. And most importantly, subscribe and share this video with a friend. Hit the notification bell and do all those things the algorithm loves. If you agree or disagree with any of my points, or you want to see me do a video on another subject, let me know, and I will see you next time. Pow pow pow, finger guns.